What up, everybody? It's PJ here, and man, it is good to be back. Sorry about the unexpected break in videos there. It was my busy season at work, and it got really busy, along with, Thanksgiving holidays and stuff. But I'm back, hopefully doing this weekly again. So let's play some Madden, and let's talk about how the Packers have done since the last video. This one's going to be an interesting one. I don't know if I've ever played the Texans on here. Kind of going back through a spreadsheet just to see. Yeah, this is my first Texans game, so alright. Little learning curve here, but whatever. So yeah, the last video that I think we ended up doing was going into the Rams game for the Packers. And man, the vibes were a lot different at that moment than they are right now. Um, Packers were on a 4-game losing streak. They had gotten beat pretty bad by the Lions on Thursday Night Football, and then just losses to the Raiders, the Broncos, and even the Vikings. You watch Rasul Douglas get traded, and it wasn't wasn't a lot of fun at that moment. But going up against the Rams, without Stafford, you kind of hope that you can get a victory there, and it was sloppy as hell. But the Packers finally had ended that skid at that moment. They had they had a missed field goal, quite a few penalties. I know at one point I think they had 8 or something like that, and 2 offensive offsides in that game, which I don't know if I had ever saw the offense called for offsides until that one, but I've seen it a couple times since, but that was rare. So Runnin was having interesting moments in that one with the brotherly shove play. The biggest thing going in that game was with Stafford out and how Green Bay's run defense had been at times in the season. Could they get a stop, on the run game against Freeman and Henderson? And on top of that, with Douglas no longer there, who is going to step up to guard Cup and Nakua for the Rams? And that turned out, the run defense actually held on pretty well. I think the Rams only got about 50 yards on 22 carries or something like that between Henderson and Freeman. And to be honest, Rippin wasn't that good. So that definitely helped with, the passing attack, trying to stop them. But either way, shout out to Carrington Valentine. He's looked pretty solid, especially for a 7th-round pick. He came in, and in that game, even he had a couple pass breakups. He had a couple run stops where he was flying downhill to get the stop. Anthony Johnson in that game too. He's not somebody that we're usually talking about, but he had to come in and start because of Rudy Ford's injury that game, and he ended up getting his first interception with Jair having a ridiculous tip off the pass where he just ended up being in the right spot at the right time. So, despite the Packers getting the victory in that one, there wasn't a whole lot of confidence on the turnaround, with Rippin getting released right after that. So, they're going into the Steelers game at that moment, and that was well, first off, before I even get into the Steelers game, that was also during the time. Ooh, good job, Kenny Clark. That was during the time Green Bay couldn't score for anything in the first half. So Aaron Jones was able to finally get a first half touchdown for Green Bay in the Rams game, partially thanks to a short field after, bad snaps for the Rams turned into disaster with Rippin getting stripped by Jonathan Owen shortly after and setting up the short field that led to that touchdown drive. And going into that Steelers game, it was kind of the joke that this might be a 3-0 or 3-3 game at, halftime, and all of a sudden it felt like the fireworks were out there in Houston, or not Houston, that's who I'm playing right now, out in Pittsburgh. you know, Green Bay ended up not winning that game, but Love was looking, pretty good up until right near the end when he was having to force everything. Uh, they had, the big touchdown to Dobbs that tied it up early, 7-7 in the back of the end zone. That was just, very nice throw. Looked, you know, looked pretty good. And then Jaden Reed's touchdown on 3rd and 16 was just, a great play as well. So overall, though, the offense was starting to look more explosive. They had, those plays as, well as a few other explosive plays. And they basically didn't let guys like T.J. Watt take over the game. I think he got 1 sack, but that was about it. The biggest thing was just, same thing with most young teams, mistakes being made. The bad thing was it seemed like a lot of it being more on the veterans. They had trick play where it was a throwback to Aaron Jones, who happened to just end up dropping it, even though he had blockers in front of him that could have turned that into a big play, and instead, they ended up having to punt. You had later in the game with Jones too. There was let's go. Speaking of Aaron Jones, right there. He had a cut back into the field when he probably should have went out of bounds. That cost him some time near the end. Special teams gave up a free rusher on an extra point that led to a block. And, late in the game, they're down 4 instead of 3 when, instead of the second pick happening at all, maybe they can go kick a field goal and go to overtime. That's good. But, on top of that, and I think there was also a kickoff out of bounds and stuff like that. There were moments, like Nixon had, a big return in that game. The offense, like I said, was, looking a lot better. Defense, yeah, I mean, they couldn't really stop anything on the ground. That was the concern that I had going into the Rams game was, are you going to be able to make stops? They did it against the Rams, but against Pittsburgh, that was another 200-yard performance on the ground, which was the 3rd time in about 9 games on the year. So they could have had probably a pick 6, but it ended up not happening for Campbell. And they should have had another touchdown, but the refs, I don't agree with the forward pass call that they had on a picket lateral back to their running back, I think Warren, or I think it was Warren, where Green Bay basically scooped and scored it. Even if you called it recovery at the spot because of whistle blowing, that would still put Green Bay on 1st and goal. But instead, it's a punt, and I don't think we got points off of that drive following it. So, just one of them games overall. It ended up being a frustrating loss, but still optimistic about the future type of game. And then, not long after that, the Chargers are coming into town, and you're sitting there at 3-6. Chargers are coming in. Got the Lions and the Chiefs behind that, so it was kind of like one of those, what's going to happen if they don't win this one? You're going to play hard, but that could easily be 9 losses and only having 1 win in several games. But then, despite the fact that guys like Jair and Rudy Ford being out on the inactive list and not really knowing who was going to guard Keenan Allen or, how they were going to stop that passing attack, the Chargers had their chances, but Green Bay was able to stay in it, because mainly with all the drops and stuff too. Chargers moved the ball well in that game. It was just, like I said, a lot of drops. Tight end had one hit him right in the chest for a drop. Keenan Allen, uncharacteristic drop. They got to the red zone like 4 times in that game. I know Eckler had a couple slips, and he ended up actually fumbling down in the red zone at like the 2. So Green Bay just kind of stayed alive all game, and Jordan Love continued to show, some positive momentum in his play. They got a 300-yard passing game out of him for the first time. That was also the first time Green Bay had a 300-yard passer since 2021 to even start with. So, unfortunately, 2 injuries again in that game. Aaron Jones ended up spraining his MCL, and then on the same drive, Emmanuel Wilson, the third string running back, he ends up dislocating his shoulder and going to IR. I thought I was going to have the sack there. But despite, the injuries and A.J. Dillon pretty much being last man standing in that running back room, they had Jaden Reed come in, and not only did he have 46 yards receiving, but then he actually threw in another 46 yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. And then Wicks is over there getting almost 100 yards in the receiving game. I think it was at like 91 or something like that on just a 3-catch performance. You got your main guys, Dobbs and Watson, both catching touchdown passes on the day, and Tucker Kraft had a big play. Almost got a touchdown just out of pure effort, but happened to step out of bounds. Even Malik Heath over there, he had his first catch and just absolutely destroyed Khalil Mack on the final touchdown drive. So that was amazing. But ultimately, it came down to Chargers were probably the better team, but made a lot more mistakes, and that was fortunate for the Packers, because even on the final drives after the go-ahead touchdown, the defense forced a 3-and-out. Gary got the third down sack, and then the offense couldn't quite put it away. Probably a little bit too conservative on the third down. That ended up not leading to a first down and us punting. But Chargers had a deep shot, and Johnston had it and would have probably got him at least into field goal range, but instead just a kind of sad, brutal drop for him. And that led to a fourth down where Kenny Clark is over there looking like Mutombo and smacking it down right in Herbert's face, which that was fun. So that finished off the win, and ultimately injuries were tough for both teams on that one. Bosa was out on he went to IR after that game with the foot sprain for them. Green Bay, in addition to Jones and Wilson, you had Musgrave, who ended up with a freaking lacerated kidney, and damn, that was a good play from him right then. So Musgrave ended up, lacerated kidney. He's going to probably be out for the year. Wicks ended up in concussion protocol. I think Campbell ended up with a neck injury in that game. So it was a tough one, and you had the short week coming up with Detroit on Thanksgiving right after that. They had already beat Green Bay pretty solidly at the start of the season. So I didn't expect any sort of victory in that game. And then it's, on top of that, it's Thanksgiving, it's short week, you got all your injuries, and you're starting out as like a 7 or 8.5 point underdog. Only for Green Bay to just suddenly decide to say screw all that, and they just balled out. They won the coin toss, immediately took the ball and hit a 53-yard pass to Christian Watson, which, that was such a good way to start the game. And then they finished off that drive with one of the best touchdown throws I had saw. Oh my goodness. Can I get a kickoff return? Let's go. Let's go. I finally got one. Let's go. Oh man, I've been waiting for a while to get one of those. But yeah, so Green Bay jumps out to that 7-0 lead against the Lions, and Lions respond with their own touchdown drive, and it looks like oh man, this is gonna be a back and forth game, or whatever, and Green Bay goes right back and scores another touchdown with Tucker Kraft finally getting one. And they followed that up with Rashawn Gary causing havoc again, causing a strip sack of Goff, which Jonathan Owens over there taking it back for his first touchdown as a Packer. They had me all believing in the power of the wax and gibbous, because that stat with Lions losing like 12 or 13 games on Thanksgiving with that moon phase. So I'm like, oh man, we can finally get a good win against the Lions because it had been a few games, and I started to kind of lose the optimism after that first drive of the second half when Lions went right downfield and made it 23-14. But shout out to Rashawn Gary. He continued to be a wrecking machine. He got 2 more sacks in the second half to complete a hat trick of sacks on the day, and they just showed out on fourth down. Lions were like 0 for 5 total on fourth downs, including a fake punt that Green Bay sniffed out pretty instantly. So 29-22 victory that not too many of us saw coming. And now Green Bay's 5-6, very much alive for a playoff spot. Since that game, you had Chicago go in and knock off Minnesota on Monday Night Football, which I'm never going to be super happy about a Bears victory, but that one was a lot less angry than normal. And then Dallas went in this week and knocked off Seattle already on Thursday Night Football, so Green Bay's got a pretty good chance to make a run for the seventh seed. I thought I had to pick. So with that, getting into the final home stretch, and that stretch starts with the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. Sunday Night Football, and I think Chiefs are like 6 and 6.5 point favorites. But Green Bay is still pretty beat up going into this one. I didn't know if I got the stop or not in time. Yeah, so Aaron Jones is already ruled out for this game. Stokes is still on IR. I saw he was listed as doubtful to play despite being limited in practice this week, so he's probably not going to be activated off IR in time. Somebody that was activated was Darnell Savage. He got moved up today, so let's go. But he should be playing, and then you're going to have Campbell and Jair, Rudy Ford, Jaden Reed, and Wicks all showing up as questionable. But all of them have at least practiced somewhat on Friday, so we'll see what happens there. The Chiefs are going to have their starting linebacker, Nick Bolton, out. He's still on IR. And then I know McKinnon was questionable at running back. But, despite all that, I'm just interested to see if Green Bay's offense can kind of keep up the momentum that they've been building up the last few weeks. The Chiefs are a team that's really good on, blitz, really big on blitzing. I saw Pro Football Reference earlier had them as like the 6th highest blitz rate so far this season. So far, Jordan Love hasn't been, great against the blitz, but you kind of hope that momentum carries in and they'll look better and see if he could take another step. One thing that's going to be interesting to see is like Kansas City's not been great against the run this year. We have AJ Dillon and then guys like Patrick Taylor and James Robinson that will be available, but Green Bay hasn't been great running the ball either this year. So even though it's a weakness for Kansas City, I don't know how much Green Bay is going to be able to take advantage of it. If they can, then that'll definitely help, Jordan Love and them as they try to extend drives and stuff. When you look at the defense, obviously Travis Kelce is going to be a problem because he's pretty much a problem for everybody, but Kansas City's receivers haven't really been great this year either. I think, whenever I look at, message boards and stuff to kind of get a vibe of what these teams are looking at before our games against them and everything, Rice is about the only one on the receiver group that hasn't been somewhat bashed lately. The Chiefs are sort of like Green Bay in that regard too, with the running game, where they haven't really been great at it, but I can see them having a little bit better of a performance than normal for them. Ooh, that's red. But, if Jordan Love actually broke that out in the middle of a game, I would instantly buy a jersey because I don't normally buy jerseys, I would go buy that jersey. But yeah, as a Green Bay, going into this one, they're 15-0 under LaFleur at home or overall in December. I'm not really expecting it this week, but I will be happy to see them go 16-0. I'm expecting more of like a 30-20 or 30-24 type of game for the Chiefs. If Green Bay is going to win it, they're going to have to keep the offense going and just try to get points while eating up time and keeping Mahomes off the field. The defense is going to have to step up and ideally get a turnover or two in this one. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens on Sunday night. But at the very least, it's one of those games where if you are looking at the Packers trying to make a postseason run, which granted, I'm still not expecting them to be Super Bowl contenders this year, but if they can get a postseason run under their belts, that would be beneficial for all the new guys. So I'm hoping they make it, and this game, if they lose it, it's not going to super affect them. They could probably go 4-2 and still make the playoffs down the stretch, but just got to keep everything going. Hey, I got the screen off. That was my first pass of this game? Holy crap. But, yeah, and then outside of the Packers, shout out to my Florida State Seminoles. They won the ACC. I'm actually recording this right after the win against Louisville. Man, what a crazy stretch. They were able to go undefeated for just the 4th time in school history in the regular season. They won the ACC title tonight with their 3rd-string quarterback in, and last week they knocked off the Gators with their 2nd string. And I'm not gonna lie, one of my coworkers is a big Gators fan since we're in Florida, and I have been pretty ruthless this week after some friendly trash talk, but. Ooh. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the playoff committee does with, the 4th spot and even the 3rd spot, because Washington and Michigan probably should both be in. Just based off a resume, I would say Florida State should be in, but there's always been they're a different team with Jordan Travis, yada yada yada, so I would hope that losing your quarterback but still winning even without him is not going to cause us to not make the playoffs. But you have Georgia, who was number 1 and on a long 29-game win streak, suddenly lose to Bama in the SEC title game, and now they're 1 loss without a conference title. And Bama, they have their 1 loss to Texas, who's ahead of them and also a conference champion. So if I had to guess, I would say, it should be Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas. But I guess we'll see around noon on Sunday. Well, noon Central Time. Or Eastern Time, I mean. Oh man, give me Wicks here. Let's go. This guy's been pretty good overall. Need my Quadzilla touchdown. Let's go. I think that's going to be the dagger in this one. I just totally realized this guy's name is probably not AJ, and I'm scoring with AJ Dillon. But yeah, sorry again, everybody, about the delay in all the videos and trying to catch up, and for this week. That was hectic at work. Normally I can work, 8 to 5 shifts or whatever, and it's not too big of a deal. But this is this was my busy season at work. We're finally wrapping it up, and there was some nights I was working, you know, all the way in the office until like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then after that go in and researching stuff and picking that back up later on, make sure I was good for different things. So just absolutely felt like I had no social life there for a couple weeks. And then also too with the holidays I was out of town for a few days, so there was pretty much no video games being had. So it's nice to just be able to come back and play a little bit of Madden. Hoping to have a few more videos this upcoming week. At least start recording some of them and hopefully have those out soon. I ain't gonna lie though, it is hard to believe that it is already December. I'm sitting here right now and it's like 71 or 72 outside, and it feels like it should be October or something. Oh, if it wasn't a dagger before, this game's over now. I'm just gonna pound the rock. Yeah, never mind. You went ahead and quit. Cool. But yeah, so it was nice to get back on the videos and get a victory here tonight. So we'll see what happens with Sunday Night Football and the Packers this week. But I plan on being back on here next week, and we'll talk about it, and we'll start getting ready for the home stretch for the Packers. So go Pack, go, and I will see you next time. Have a great one.